Ying Han Cheng, best-selling author of YOLO Life and Business Style with Freedom, Fun, and Inspired Connection. She's also a lifestyle innovation coach. And we're doing a follow-up on a case study we did a few months ago before she had written a book, and she was just filled with fears and doubt about how it would do, or no one would buy it, or that she needed to be small instead of big, and fear of shining her light in the world and revealing her true self and inner light. And all the concerns about the book writing and editing and launching process and whether she could do it, and was it okay to accept help from people if she didn't know she could make the deadline, and a whole bunch of things. And I'll put a link to that original case study. But we want to check in and see how we know it was a best-selling launch. We want to see how the book did. So how did your book writing process go?
The book writing part, first of all, to get to bestsellers, that was like, oh my God, really? I got it. Like, that was sort of like that celebratory moment where it was like climbing from 49 to 19 to 14, then to 9, then to 2, and I was just like, wow. And just seeing the amount of people share it, people who loved it, and some people who even read it within the first 2 days of it being published, cover to cover, who were texting me about it and taking screenshots and sending me that was something that I did not expect. Wow. And that really just that was just really something that really made it wow, this message is important. It's bigger than me. It's something that, this is why I needed to do this. So that was really, really nice to hear that from others. And especially for people, someone was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is answering the questions I'm exactly asking right now. So I was like, wow, that's cool. Because I didn't, and that person didn't even it wasn't she wasn't even on my original list to reach out to. So it was someone who just kind of saw the news of it on Facebook and email. Yeah. But the book writing process, oh my gosh, the book writing process is definitely a journey. I think of it as a hero's journey, and it was definitely a lot of, not only structural, just a structural goal where it demanded focus, but it was also an emotional journey, battling all the different parts within myself, you heard in the last case study, and just really accepting, loving, but also acknowledging that these parts all live inside of me, and that they have potential to be transformed. I think really taking the time and not neglecting that was super key to actually move forward. Because every step I took forward, I literally had to I took 2 or 3 steps back, and I was like, okay, we need to change this, because otherwise it'll take years before I finish this. Yeah, and that's when it really helped to do what would it take, journaling. That's when it took a really good time to just kind of pause and think about it, or even take some time off from the actual editing, because I finished the book within a month and a half, but the editing process was just I didn't want to read my own thing in the beginning, because I was like, I don't know, what, and then I would put it off for 3-4 days, and I'll read it and I'll be like, oh, actually, wow, I didn't know I wrote this. This sounds good. So yeah, there was a lot of hide and seek.
And part of this emotional journey was dealing with the fears that you had, that the writing wasn't good enough, or people wouldn't read it.
Yeah, so in the book, I actually share a lot of personal stories that were really, really vulnerable to me. And because I wrote my first copy in Whistler, which is, the topic of the book is lifestyle and business style, YOLO lifestyle and business style, I noticed that in order for me to commit to the book, I needed to have something equally exciting and equally fun, as much as the fear of committing to something such a big project. And so I paired it with, I launched it together with a snowboarding trip to Whistler for the month of February, basically.
Wow.
And so yeah, so with this big reward, I kind of launched the book together. And so a lot of those stories that I wrote during that kind of trickle through the book are written during that time when I was alone and I was like really enjoying myself, but I was going really deep in some of the vulnerable stories. And so after writing those, I was really scared to like release them. It's literally like a part of my heart, right? Like it's like a part of like this naked girl inside of me. And so I was really afraid that people were not going to accept it. They're going to all read it and be like, who is this person? Like, this is like not who I thought she was. And, you know, a lot of people did. A lot of people said that they had no idea like that was the journey that I had to go through in life. But then now they understand why I am doing this and why they, if this resonates with them, like they need to pay attention and how they can change their lives with this YOLO concept too. But releasing that topic or like a lot of the stories was a big leap for me in terms of just peeling another layer of authenticity, you know, just like peeling another layer off for more authenticity to shine through.
Well, and I think by being vulnerable and authentic, it really creates a greater connection with your readers. And I certainly know there were some things I wrote in my first book that I was nervous about people reading. But I've had, you know, it's
absolutely.
I forget who said this, but you know, whatever we create polarizes the people out there. Some people love it, some will hate it, and that's okay.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
if we try and make everyone happy, it just turns into this bland thing, and no one really likes it.
Yeah, and like I remember this happening because like. To that point, like I was, you know, when I was deciding my title and my subtitles, I was like putting it on Facebook, I was putting it all different sources, and I realized that some people were really adamantly against it, and then some people loved it, and it was definitely polarized. Some people are like, this just sounds like sound bites, and it's super cliche, and da da da, right? But then I realized that like the people who were excited about it or who were following up with like different ideas about it, those were the ones who were getting the book. Those were the ones who were reading through it and doing the exercises in it. And so like that part of me that just wanted everyone to love it had to like take a step back and really focus on the people who really who this message was really for. I think that was a big, and that continues to be a big sort of direction to commit to.
So talking of committing to things, you committed to a deadline to publish your book. Tell us how that worked for you and your relationship to your deadline.
So originally, I had thought that writing a book was going to take me a very short time because I was reading online that there are these programs that were like, you know, write a book in 40 days or like write a book in 30 days. And so I was like, okay, cool. So I'll do it in 2 months or a month, or I'll do the first draft in a month, the second draft in 2 months and stuff like that. And so what I found was actually it took me a month and a half to write the book because I had already done programs before that, and this book kind of sprouted off out of my group programs because all the people were like getting results, they were excited, and they're like, you should totally do something that can reach more people or that we could follow while we're not in the program or when we graduate. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. But the editing process actually took a lot longer. So my creative process so then as I was writing it, I was like, okay, cool, I can put a deadline to it. But when the editing process started, I like did not want to commit to a deadline. I was thinking, okay, I'll do it at the end of April. Maybe I'll do it in May. And then at one point, like I just had to put a deadline there because even though I put the deadline there, like my body was like not believing that that was like a realistic deadline. And so I would just be, I would work on it and work really hard on it, and I would know that there would still be a lot to do, and I would still be editing sentences where I should have been like scanning and just like, you know, structurally like structuring everything instead of changing the sentences. And so what I realized was that deadlines are super important for focus. And second of all, like when you put a deadline in there, 1,000 fears will come up, maybe. That's what it did for me. But that's okay, especially if it's a new project. Because it's new and you don't know if you can do it. And yeah, like I was mentioning earlier as well, before the call, I have new projects that are coming up. I'm rolling out membership sites and different ways, because people are like, what's next now? And so a lot of people who have finished reading it are like, oh, these are my new questions. I want to take this to the next level. Like, what can I do next? And so I'm rolling out new things, and the same type of fears actually show up, which is
the same ones.
The same ones. The same ones. And I'm like, oh, and I didn't notice it until I started reading my case study from the week before, the last case study. And I was like, oh, this is what I've been thinking about all day today. And I was like, that's, you find like, you feel like you're tricked, because you're like, oh my God, you tricked me again. Like, this fear. Yeah. It's like this seduction, you get seduced by this fear and the fear of not being good enough or something like that. Like, it's like a little dwarf and they seduce you on this path of thought, and you got tricked again. I'm like, oh my God. And so I come back to the middle, take the other fork. So that's kind of how I saw that when I read the last case study.
So you recognized all these old fears. Do you feel your relationship with them is the same, or is it shifted in some way?
Oh, shifted for sure. I mean, just from sheer awareness, now it's a lot less serious than it was before.
Yeah, so you can laugh.
The worst case scenario sort of visualizing. Yeah, because you can just see how that isn't as important. Like, it's not worth the time to kind of worry about it or to feel down about it, because, the way that I felt during the book writing was actually all those feelings was actually really holding me back, as opposed to really being encouraging to the whole process. So now I know that, I just did this launch project, and that had originally held me back. And so now into the new project, I don't actually need to hold on to these, and I can identify them as they come up, just because I had identified them then, to kind of chase that forward.
Well, that's great. So they don't get in your way as much and give you writer's block or creator's block or
exactly. Or fear of visibility. I think that's a huge one.
Yeah, because you're more visible now.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember the first day after I launched my book and it got to bestsellers, the next day I had brunch with my friends, a bunch of them, and they're all very really people I look up to, and I was like, oh my gosh, they're all gonna know about this. And I walk in, or rather, I was just hoping to still stay in a cloak. I didn't want to really boast about it or talk about it, but people it was really surprising, because every single person on the table had actually even reached out to them personally to share about the book. And so one of them even finished reading, I think halfway through it. He's like, oh, I was doing my morning exercise in the morning, and I was just browsing through it, and it was good. And he's in the financial industry, and I was like, wow. I did not know that appealed to an audience in that industry. So I was like, that was new thing to me.
So you're more comfortable, being bigger in the world now?
For sure. I think honestly, just like I was sharing earlier, because there were these areas that I was worried that people are not going to like, that it's already out in the world right now in the form of this book. I actually feel a lot more comfortable just sharing anything that, and in a way that, yeah, it's just honest. And yeah.
Well, what an enormous growth step for you to do that, because if I remember right, that came from your childhood, where you kind of covered up your light, and now you're letting it shine out and share your authentic
Right.
truth with others, even if it isn't perfect. Or
Yeah. Even if
speaking
it
of,
isn't perfect.
yeah. So I know perfectionism was part of your issue in the past. What's your relationship with perfectionism now?
Oh my gosh. Perfectionism. I mean, think like perfectionism actually inhibits like perfectionism actually inhibits, like level 10 of perfectionism actually really inhibits creation. I mean, you need to have some form of perfection, but also at one point you just need to shift. Actually, like the day or 2 days before the book was being like published, I was still working on it because I was like, there's got to be more that I can like edit out. And I mean, it wasn't perfect. There are certain things within the book that I wanted that could have been better. But yeah, so my relationship with perfectionism is like, I acknowledge its existence, and I also know that the deadline is something to conquer it. The deadline actually is stronger than perfectionism. So within the time frame that you have set for yourself, or like for that is gonna be able to allow like overcoming of perfectionism to get it out, as perfect as possible within that time frame. I think that's like a nice controlled perfectionism. Yeah, monitoring.
Yeah, I mean, you want it to be good. And I think perfect is the enemy of good. So, because otherwise stuff never gets released. I mean, I think that's what a lot of us have. I've had that in the past. I started writing a book and didn't release it. And I know a lot of other people have things they want to do, whether it's writing a book or going on world travels or creating a business or whatever. And without a deadline and without facing those fears like you did, it just doesn't get released, and that creation doesn't go into the world.
And then like a year or two pass, and you're like, okay, maybe I should release it. And then 5 years or a decade pass, and then you've already changed. So if you release it, it's a reflection of the old identity or the old you. So that it never gets released.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, that's no longer me. So yeah.
and which is a shame for you and the world being able to share the great things you can share, but it also means you don't release the fears underlying that block of releasing it.
Exactly.
Because it's actually a bigger loss.
Yeah. Because actually the person, it's a bigger loss. Exactly. I was gonna say, like, actually the person you become as you embark on something big like this, or like some career project that you're always thinking of, or your big idea, is more important than, and just as important as like the actual product being released. Like you conquering that process and like moving on from that idea. It just feels like, so much has been lifted. I remember the day after the launch, I just felt like I was already feeling really good about the launch and like really good about writing it and really good about getting there. But then the moment I had some time to myself, I felt so much lighter. I literally felt like I had birthed an energetic baby, and I was just like, there's so much more space in me, and I was much more creative, and there were so many more ideas, and I was like, where did this even come from? I had no idea that I had been incubating something inside of me for this long. And just as sort of a baby has its own life, like the book has its own life too. It attracts like a whole, like, its own community, its own people. And I think at this point, I'm just seeing it as, what does it need? Like, what does it need within the business? And like, how can I just like give it what it needs to share its message out?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. Your creation, whether it's a book or product or a business, it has its own spiritual energy, and it wants to come into being, and it's chosen you to give birth to it. And if we hold on to things and don't release them, it's kind of stifling that living being's existence.
And it'll always stay in there, and you'll know it, right? Because your mind will always wander back to it and be like, oh, have I, like, oh, it's here, it's back again. This idea is back again, it's back again. So, if you miss it, like, it'll come back. It'll just, but it will whisper softer and softer each time. But if there is something that comes to you, that's definitely a big one.
And, and that can lead to feelings of regret, which I think is one of the ways people age. I don't think we purely age just because the calendar years have gone by. It's because we have undealt with crap inside ourselves, regrets and traumas that we haven't dealt with. And if we can clear those out, we can stay younger. So that's a beauty tip for those watching.
Facial.
Yes, release your regrets, release the things that you want to create in the world, and you'll look younger.
Yeah, you'll have more aliveness.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned that your identity has shifted since you did this. Tell us a bit about that, your identity before and your identity now that you've released this best-selling book.
Sure. Oh my gosh, this is a really interesting topic too, because I was actually hanging out with my boyfriend and with a mutual friend, and this is a kind of a tangent, but it's kind of related to identity. And I was like and we were just like joking around and having fun. And at one point, he was like teasing me about something, right? And I was with my friend. I was like, kind of like jesting and being like, see, like he's still stuck in my old identity of me, but I have changed and he's now followed up with this new identity of me. And like my friend was laughing at like the way we're just like joking with each other. And as I was kind of reflecting upon like that idea, or like I was like looking at myself today and I was like taking on these new projects and like thinking of planning the rest of the year with this new book. And the rest of the products from before, I was thinking like, okay, cool. Like, I was having some of the similar doubts as I was mentioning earlier come up. And I realized that, hey, you know what? Like, actually, like, I'm still stuck in my old identity. I'm still having those fears for my old identity. Like, why am I not like jumping over or like, there's an opportunity here that I can be sitting in the vehicle of this book and all the work that I've already done and ride much faster at like 100K. But like, why am I still walking in the shoes of my old identity? Like along the side, it's going to take much longer to accomplish what I want to.
How many identity shoes do you have here? Are you talking Imelda Marcos, the number of identity shoes?
I know. Oh man. Yeah, I don't know, but I definitely have a new one that I'm getting into.
The new identity, yeah.
Yeah, this new upgraded. I was like joking with them, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna install this new one in, and I just like imagine like this like whole like installation and like rebooting of me so that it's like all integrated before I take on this next challenge.
Well, sounds good. And how does this this public identity, is that the same as your internal self, or?
Yeah, closer and closer. I think so. My goal is to have sort of so as growing up, right, as a third culture kid, I lived in many countries, like internationally, like 3 to 5 years each time. And so I literally had different multiple identities, like every single time I switched schools. Depending on whatever was, and I write about this a lot in the book, depending on what is liked, right? Like, and what is socially, like, popular, likes, like, if people think you're nice. Basically, the equation I got was being nice equals having more friends, and having more friends equals more happiness, something like that. And so, I had a lot of identities, and I feel like it was really tiring to upkeep all of them, right? Because like it's every single identity requires like energy to like upkeep. And so then now, even in the business and the personal life, like I try to just have one voice, one identity, so and I'm also like, you know, evolving and developing this identity. So it's a constant like work in progress. It's a constant evolution. But it's something that I realize that when everything is aligned, like everything you say, everything you do, everything you create is all aligned, like that's so much more efficient, like energetically. It makes you happier, more fulfilled, like you're just aligned with your values. And you know, in the first chapter, like I talk a lot about that as well. And that's why I think, yeah, so even though there's a multiple identities, there's definitely one right now that I am merging everything into, or kind of like integrating everything into. And that is the one that's the most connected and the most aligned.
So you used to be like a social chameleon who would change her color depending on what friends she was with. And now you've got your own style and color, and you just...
Kind of, yeah. I mean, it doesn't help that I like speak like so many different languages too, right? And have friends in different countries. So like every single time I meet like my elementary school, I'd be a personality. Every time I meet like, you know, my coaching friends, there'll be a different one. And if I meet my German friends, when I was just in Germany, like I had like a whole like German identity. And so yeah, but then it now it's like all kind of like aligned.
Wow, cool. And then after you launched the book, did you have some emptiness or?
Oh yeah, for sure. After launching the book, I was like, so many new ideas, so much more opportunity, and then I was just like, and then like what I was saying, like there was a huge emptiness because my identity hadn't caught up to the new identity, and so I was feeling really lost because this new me knew that I am able to do like bigger things and create more and just step more into my purpose because I had already stepped through that last level. But because this old me hadn't caught up to the new me yet, that old me still didn't think it was possible, or like it didn't know really, it wasn't clear on what the next step was, even though the new me already did. So I just had to realign to that new version so that I could take a deep breath and see all of the next steps. Because I had all the steps in my book already, in my like productivity journal, and then the old one was still holding everything back. So is that vague?
Yeah. Well, and I think just on a practical level, whenever you have a big project and it ends, you know, you've been busy for months and focused on it, and then it's done, and it's like you don't have all those things to do. So I think it's a natural thing as well, and it's part of
like a big gap, and then you get into another project.
Yeah, it's like the seasons of life. You know, you have summer where everything's all full of energy, and then you have winter when you regather yourself and can create the seeds of new creations. So you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with a little emptiness after birthing a new product. I mean, what do they call that in physical birthing, right? Postpartum depression, right?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, interesting way of looking at pregnancy that way. Yeah, or like looking at it through the lens of pregnancy.
Right. So you know, I think there's some wisdom there from that. So you used the what would it take and what were the other tools you used in this process?
I actually used TLC quite a bit. Yeah. So.
And how did that help you?
So as the momentum was going really, really fast. I mean, on the day of the launch and the night before the launch and the night after the launch, I was like full of adrenaline. It was so exciting. I was just basically talking to as many people as I could, and that was really great. But then after, I think like after it or like right before it, there was a lot of times where there was a huge momentum, and in order to be in the momentum rather than like kind of like not ride the momentum, I did a lot of TLC breath work to just center myself so that I can like, you know, continue much easier and much more effortlessly then I think I would have been able to. I was actually in Italy. We had this super fast car, like this Mercedes AMG, I don't even know, like whatever series. But basically it was going at 250 kilometers on the German Autobahn, which was like limitless, right? Like, I mean, it's like unlimited, like speed limit. And so during that time, I was actually feeling the huge momentum. And I did TLC during that thing. And then I was thinking to myself, you know, like business is kind of like that. Sometimes we put the brakes on, even though we don't need to, just because the momentum of everything and opportunities and the decisions, like there's just so much coming at us. And I really, really enjoyed that metaphor, to know that, you know, when you do feel overwhelmed, it's okay. There's a possibility to just ride on that same frequency, as opposed to having to like gear down or like, you know, or brake when you don't need to. Absolutely, like when you don't absolutely need to. So that was a cool TLC moment.
That is cool. I can just see you in this fast car on the Autobahn.
Yeah, I was like, ooh.
Connecting to the light. Sounds fun.
Breathing. Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
And any other things you did with spiritual tools in this book creation process and launch?
Let me think. I mean, I definitely tried to do the chair thing, or like tried to talk to like my audience avatar to see like what they wanted. I attempted those a couple of times. I wasn't sure if I was getting it right. I think I talked to you about one of them too. Like I was asking you something, I forgot what it was, in Facebook chat, and then you gave me a good tip about about how to like a good what would it take question to ask. Yeah.
Did having an audience avatar help you? Clear who your ideal reader was?
I think my ideal, I mean, I definitely have a few different ideal readers. So unlike what I imagined, which I was like really, really hard on myself with, I was like, oh, you have to have like one niche that you're speaking to. There was like 2 or 3. And so what I did, I just saw them in their own category, and I just addressed them throughout the book, like in each of their stages. Yeah,
that's a good insight that you didn't have to have the perfect one avatar.
Yeah, because I think like that's a role that obviously is very important, and a lot of people have gotten a lot of success of it. But I realized that that because I had like, for some reason, I just felt like there was pulling, like both of these people were pulling me to them, and then the third one's kind of like in between it, that I just wanted to address 3 of them.
Cool.
Or 2 mainly, yeah. Yeah.
So any other updates you want to share with listeners?
Well, I would love to share that because you've listened all the way till here. I'd love to share a link to also let you like take a peek into the book and see how you can live your YOLO lifestyle and create your ideas into reality. And awesomeness. That's what I'd love to gift you, and hope you like it. And then last thing is that big idea of yours, whatever it is, earth it out.
Yay. Well, we'll put that link in the show notes so people can get that gift and info. And I really appreciate you coming back on the show and telling people how things went after all that nail-biting, nerve-wracking time you had before. And you just look more relaxed and happy now. Not that you weren't that happy before, but I think if you look back at that previous video, there was a bit of anxiety going on.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole new project for membership right now, the YOLO membership, and like, and I could be in that position, but yeah, but maybe talk to you in another month and it'll be different, but who knows?
Great. Well, thanks for joining us from Hong Kong, where it's late at night, and I'm sure we'll get to meet you somewhere in the world. So thanks so
Yeah,
much, Ying Han.
absolutely. Thanks. So good to have all of you guys here. See ya.